ever scroll through social media and just think like, what? How can people actually believe this stuff?
Yeah,
It's like we're living in different realities.
it really
Uh,
does.
And today we're going to be taking a deep dive into a fascinating and maybe a little uncomfortable topic,
Okay.
the beliefs held by many Trump supporters.
Right?
We've got some recent polling data from YouGov
Yeah.
and some really insightful analysis from the Washington Post
Yeah.
to kind of help us unpack all of this.
Yeah, this should be interesting because I think we're not just talking about like differing opinions on policy or something, We're really venturing into beliefs that have been widely debunked.
Yeah.
It's concerning.
Yeah, and it raises a lot of questions like,
Mm-hmm.
how does misinformation spread?
Yeah.
How does it take hold?
Why do people believe things that seem so outlandish to others?
Exactly. And the findings from this YouGov poll are
Yeah.
like pretty startling.
Oh, yeah.
They asked Trump supporters about some pretty out there claims,
Mm.
and the percentages who believe them are really eye-opening.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note here, YouGov is like a well-respected polling firm, so
Hmm.
their data is generally considered reliable.
Got it.
And they surveyed a representative sample of American adults.
Hmm.
So these results reflect a broader trend, not just like
Right.
a fringe group.
Not just like a couple of
Gosh.
random people on the internet.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into like the nitty-gritty.
All right.
What are some of these eyebrow-raising beliefs that the poll uncovered?
Okay, well, one finding that immediately jumps out at me is that 52% of Trump supporters believe that Haitian migrants were abducting and eating pet dogs and cats.
Eating pets.
I know, it's
Seriously?
wild, right?
That sounds like something out of a bad horror movie.
It does. And like
Yeah.
this claim originated during the Ohio gubernatorial race.
Okay.
And it was repeatedly amplified by some political figures, despite having absolutely no evidence to support it.
So like officials in Ohio actually like went on record debunking this.
Yes, they did. They even connected it to like threats against Haitian migrants.
Wow.
But despite the lack of evidence, this belief persisted among a significant portion of Trump supporters.
Okay, so here's where I get tripped up.
Okay.
If something is so demonstrably false, why do people cling to it?
Right.
Is it just a lack of access to information?
It's tempting to think that if people just had the right facts, they would change their minds, but it's rarely that simple.
Right.
The Washington Post article dives into this as well
Okay.
and suggests there are like deeper psychological and social factors at play.
Okay, so it's not just about being uninformed.
Right.
What are some of these deeper factors that might be contributing to these beliefs?
So one major factor is confirmation bias.
Okay.
We all have this tendency to gravitate towards information that confirms what we already believe, even if those beliefs are objectively false.
Right.
And we're really good at dismissing information that challenges our worldview.
I can see how that plays out. Like,
Yeah.
if you already have a negative perception of a certain group, you're more likely to believe negative things about them, even if there's no proof.
Exactly. And it's not just about individual biases.
Okay.
Our social circles and identities play a huge role, too. We tend to align our beliefs with the groups we identify with, our families, our friends, our communities.
Yeah.
So if everyone around you believes something, it becomes much harder to question it,
Right.
even if you have doubts.
It's like a self-reinforcing cycle.
It is.
The more you're surrounded by people who share your beliefs,
Yeah.
the more those beliefs become ingrained.
Precisely. And this is where political rhetoric can become really powerful
Oh.
and even dangerous.
Okay.
Skilled politicians can tap into these existing biases and fears,
Right.
using emotionally charged language to solidify support, even if it means promoting misinformation.
So it's not just about individual responsibility.
Right.
There's a systemic element to this as well. But let's get back to that YouGov data. I'm guessing the Haitian migrant claim wasn't the only shocking finding.
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
The poll also revealed that 43% of Trump supporters believe that it's legal to kill a baby after birth in some states.
Whoa, hold on. That's a disturbingly high number.
It is.
I'm assuming this stems from misinformation about abortion laws.
Absolutely.
Ah.
This belief likely arises from a misunderstanding of late-term abortion, which is an extremely rare procedure,
Okay.
performed only in cases where the mother's life is at risk or the fetus has severe abnormalities.
Got it.
The idea that babies are being routinely killed after birth is simply not true.
Okay, but the fact that so many people believe this highlights just how powerful misinformation can be.
It really does.
What else did this poll reveal about the beliefs of Trump supporters?
Another concerning finding is that 28% believe that public schools are providing students with sex change operations.
Wait, really?
Yeah, again, there is zero evidence to support this. This claim has been circulating online and amplified by some politicians preying on fears about public institutions and LGBTQ plus individuals.
It's like something straight out of a conspiracy theory.
It is.
This idea of schools secretly performing gender-affirming surgery on children.
Exactly. It's a fabricated narrative designed to stoke fear and distrust. And the fact that it's gained traction among a significant segment of the population is a sobering reminder of how vulnerable we are to misinformation.
Wow, this is a lot to process. So far, we've uncovered some really alarming statistics about the beliefs held by many Trump supporters. And it seems like a lot of these beliefs are rooted in fear, bias, and a willingness to accept information that confirms existing views regardless of evidence.
You've hit the nail on the head, but before we jump to conclusions, it's important to remember that these findings don't necessarily mean that all Trump supporters are uninformed or gullible. There are many factors at play here, and it's crucial to understand the nuances of how misinformation takes hold and spreads.
Great point. And that leads us to some bigger questions like, why are these beliefs so pervasive?
Yeah.
And what does it mean for our political landscape, especially as we head into another election cycle?
Those are the questions we'll be exploring in the next part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned.
And what's so fascinating is this pattern of embracing misinformation. It kind of extends beyond these outlandish claims like the Haitian migrant story.
Okay.
The Washington Post article points out that we see similar trends with other misleading claims Trump has made, even ones that are related to statistics or interpreting events.
So we're not just talking about wild, unfounded rumors,
Right.
but also a distorted understanding of facts and figures.
Exactly.
You give me some examples.
Yeah. So, for instance, a staggering 77% of Trump supporters believe the U.S. has given more aid to Ukraine than all of Europe combined.
Seriously?
I know, it's wild.
Wow.
And that's just factually incorrect. While the U.S. is a significant contributor, European nations have also provided substantial financial and military support.
So it's not just about falling for sensational stories.
Right.
It's about having a skewed perspective on the actual data.
Exactly. And the poll revealed other instances of this as well. 70% of Trump supporters believe millions of undocumented immigrants arrive in the U.S. each month, which is a vast exaggeration.
Wow.
Similarly, 70% believe that inflation is at its highest point ever, which is also demonstrably false.
It's like they're constructing an alternate reality.
Yeah.
Where facts can be molded to fit a specific narrative.
That's a sharp observation.
Yeah.
And the Washington Post article connects this to other instances where Trump supporters have readily accepted claims that have been debunked. Like, for example, a majority of Republicans have consistently denied Trump's attempts to overturn the 2020 election. They've downplayed the classified documents at Mar-a-Lago and even believed Trump's offices were wiretapped during the 2016 campaign.
So this isn't a new phenomenon.
Right.
This inclination to accept misinformation, even when it's demonstrably false,
Mm-hmm.
it's been brewing for years.
Precisely, which leads to a crucial question. If facts aren't persuasive, what is? Can we bridge this chasm between different realities?
Right. If presenting the truth isn't enough,
Yeah.
what can we do? How do we even have productive conversations about important issues when people are operating from such different sets of facts?
That's a question social scientists and communication experts are wrestling with. There are no easy answers. But I can tell you one thing. Dismissing those who hold these beliefs as stupid
Right.
is unproductive.
Okay.
It's likely to further alienate them and make them less receptive to different viewpoints.
Okay, so name calling is off the table.
Right.
What about appealing to logic and reason?
Okay.
If we can just lay out the facts clearly enough.
Unfortunately, research suggests that even when presented with factual evidence that contradicts their beliefs, people often double down.
Really?
This is known as the backfire effect.
Okay.
When our deeply held beliefs are challenged, our brains perceive it as a threat, causing us to become even more entrenched. It's kind of like if someone told you your favorite sports team was terrible.
Yeah.
Even if they had stats proving they were doing well, you might defend them even harder.
I can see that.
Yeah.
So if logic and reason aren't always effective,
Right.
what other approaches might work better?
One promising approach is focusing on shared values and finding common ground.
Okay.
Instead of starting with disagreements, try to identify areas of overlap.
Got it.
So, for example, even if you disagree on specific immigration policies, you might agree on the importance of like a fair and humane system.
Right, so build trust and understanding before tackling the more contentious issues.
Exactly.
Like, instead of starting a conversation about vaccines by throwing scientific studies at someone,
Right.
maybe start by talking about your shared desire to keep your families healthy.
Exactly. It's also crucial to listen empathetically.
Okay.
Try to understand why someone holds a certain belief. What are their fears, their concerns, and their motivations? When people feel heard and understood, they're more open to considering different perspectives.
This makes me think about like how we consume information today.
Yeah,
We're just inundated with news from like countless
right.
sources. It makes it so difficult to sift through the noise and figure out what's credible.
You've raised another crucial point. The rise of social media has created these echo chambers
Yeah.
where people are primarily exposed to information that confirms their existing biases.
Right.
And algorithms often prioritize engaging content, which often means emotionally charged or provocative content, even if it's inaccurate.
Oh, yeah.
Think about those clickbait headlines you see.
Hmm.
They're designed to grab your attention, even if the story itself isn't that shocking.
It's like a breeding ground for misinformation to go viral.
Precisely. This is where media literacy is critical.
Okay.
We need to be critical consumers of information,
Mm.
questioning sources, evaluating evidence, and being wary of claims that seem too good to be true or confirm our biases.
Right. So just because something pops up on your feed or a friend shared it
Yeah,
doesn't mean it's accurate.
exactly. That's a key takeaway for our listeners.
Right.
It's not enough to just passively absorb information.
Right.
We need to be active participants, filtering and analyzing what we consume.
Like fact-checking sources, considering different perspectives, not just taking things at face value.
Absolutely.
Mm.
We all have a responsibility to be discerning consumers of information, to seek out diverse perspectives, and to engage in civil discourse, even when we disagree.
That's a powerful message. But I'm curious, does the data offer any insights into how these beliefs might impact the broader political landscape,
Yeah.
especially with another election on the horizon?
Mm-hmm.
Could this be like a deciding factor for some voters?
That's worth exploring. Fortunately, the YouGov poll provides some insights into that.
Okay, let's delve into that. What did
Mhm.
the poll reveal about how these beliefs might shape voter behavior?
One of the most crucial findings, and perhaps a glimmer of hope, is that these extreme beliefs are much less common among independent voters.
Interesting.
So, for example, when it came to that Haitian migrant claim,
Mm.
independents disbelieved it by a more than 2-to-1 margin.
Wow.
And regarding claims about like executing babies after birth or schools performing sex change operations, over 60% of independents rejected those ideas.
So while these beliefs might be deeply entrenched among some Trump supporters,
Right.
they don't represent the broader electorate.
Precisely. And this has significant implications for electoral strategy.
Okay.
If a candidate relies heavily on appealing to a base that holds these views, they risk alienating the very voters they need to win a general election.
Right, those swing voters.
Yeah.
Those
And
independents. They're the ones who often decide elections.
It seems like a risky strategy, especially in a closely divided country.
It does.
And it's a reminder that while understanding and addressing the spread of misinformation is crucial, it's also essential to remember that not everyone is equally susceptible to it. Many voters still value facts, evidence, and reasoned discourse.
That's a hopeful thought.
It is.
But I can't help but wonder, if these beliefs are so resistant to facts and logic, what can be done to bridge the divide and foster a more informed and nuanced public discourse? How do we even begin to have these conversations when we're starting from such different places?
Yeah, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do we foster a more informed public discourse when we're practically living in different realities? It's daunting for sure,
It is.
but it's something we have to grapple with.
It is a challenge.
Yeah.
But I think as we've seen in this deep dive, recognizing the problem is the first step towards addressing it.
Right.
We can't solve a problem we don't acknowledge.
Absolutely. Awareness is key. We need to be aware of our own biases, the ways in which misinformation spreads, the tactics used to manipulate our beliefs. It's like we all have those blind spots, right? Things we just
Well-
automatically believe without questioning.
Exactly. And we need to be willing to challenge our own assumptions
Mm.
and engage in respectful dialogue with those who hold different views.
It's not about winning an argument, but understanding different perspectives and finding common ground.
It's about remembering that behind those beliefs are real people
Yes.
with real concerns,
Absolutely.
even if we disagree with how they interpret things.
Well said. And it's important to note that while we focused on the beliefs of Trump supporters in this deep dive, misinformation isn't limited to any one political party or ideology. It's a problem that affects us all.
It does. We've all fallen for fake news or shared something without checking the source. You know, it's human nature to a certain degree,
It is.
but we can do better,
We can, and we all need to be vigilant, regardless of our political leanings.
right?
So let's circle back to that initial question we posed. Are Trump supporters just stupid?
Right, because that's what sparked this whole deep dive in the first place. And I think based on what we've explored, it's
Yeah.
pretty clear that the answer isn't a simple yes or no.
Exactly. To just chalk it up to, like, a lack of intelligence overlooks all these complex social, psychological, and political factors that are involved.
Right.
It's like saying someone who's struggling financially is just lazy. It ignores all those systemic issues that contribute to poverty.
It's about recognizing the power of misinformation, the ways in which it exploits our biases and our fears, and the tactics used to spread it. It's about understanding that people arrive at their beliefs for various reasons,
Yeah.
and simply dismissing those with differing views as stupid is both unhelpful and inaccurate.
Precisely. And I think this deep dive has really aimed to explore those complexities and encourage our listeners to think critically about the information they encounter.
Yeah.
It's about being informed, not just opinionated.
And to remember, we all have a role to play in combating misinformation and fostering a more informed and nuanced public discourse.
Indeed, it's an ongoing challenge,
It is.
but one we can't afford to ignore. So to our listeners, we leave you with this. If facts don't always change minds, what can we do to bridge the gap between these different realities that we seem to be living in? How can we have productive conversations about sensitive topics when we're starting from such different places?
Those are tough questions,
They are.
but they're the right ones to be asking. Because the health of our democracy depends on our ability to engage in thoughtful, informed debate, even when it's uncomfortable.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey.
Until next time, stay curious, keep those minds sharp, and always double-check your sources.